We dismiss history at our peril.
Liberty Nation Radio with Mark Angelides.
With Dilbert creator Scott Adams throwing his career on the proverbial bonfire of the Vanities, we're asking what are the facts behind the flames and whether public pronouncements in general have become dangerous territory. Well, to help us navigate the complexities, we're joined by Liberty Nation author and host of the Right On Show, Mr. Jeff Charles. Welcome back to the show, Jeff.
Yeah, thanks for having me back. This should be pretty interesting.
Well, let's hope so. If it isn't, I blame you. If it is, I blame my excellent skills as host. So bear that in mind. Now, Jeff, give us a brief encapsulation of the mess that Scott Adams finds himself in for those who haven't been subject to the wall-to-wall media spread on this.
Yeah, so it all started with a poll, a Rasmussen poll, that said that that it asked respondents if they agreed with the statement, "It's okay to be white." And when they polled Black respondents, 53% agreed with that statement, while 47% were either not sure or they disagreed with the statement. So Scott Adams, who likes to stir the pot, got on his podcast and quoted the poll and basically said that this indicates that Black Americans are a hate group and that he doesn't want to be part of a hate group, and that while he has spent a lot of his lifetime trying to help Black people, he's no longer going to do it because it's futile, it's useless, blah, blah, blah. It went from there, and the internet exploded like Chernobyl. Now, I will say this, and I know you'll have other questions, but sure. I've been listening to Scott Adams for a long time. So when I first saw that rant, I knew what he was doing. But the problem is that not everybody listens to Scott Adams. So this really blew up.
So what was he doing, in your opinion, Jeff? Was he looking for early retirement?
Well, actually, he was, but he didn't talk about that until later during an interview with Hotep Jesus. But he was being provocative. He was using hyperbole to make a point because he wanted to start a conversation. He trolls a lot. He's done this before, although this would be the strongest example of him doing this. And so he wanted to start a conversation, which he did, but I'm not sure if it's centering on what he actually would have wanted people to be talking about.
Yeah, I mean, no doubt he is a provocateur, as is Hotep Jesus, I might add. I'm sure. I think you know him, and let him know he does have a fan over here. Now, you wrote a piece on Liberty Nation. I think it's called Dilbert creator Scott Adams Sets the Internet on Fire. And I got to tell you, it also that article kind of set on fire in terms of the numbers that it gained. It seems to be a popular story across vast swaths of even before unreached audiences. Now, why do you think it gained so much traction?
You know, I think part of it was people wanting to understand what Scott Adams was doing. I mean, some people just dismiss it as racist, but again, I hate to say it, but racism sells. If people think that something's racist, it's going to go viral on social media. I mean, and also Scott Adams is pretty well known. I mean, not everybody listens to his podcast, but they have an idea of who he is. Everybody knows what Dilbert is, right? I mean, even when we were kids, Dilbert was around. So I think that's a lot of it. And I think people had questions about the Rasmussen poll. I think people are rightly questioning the veracity of the poll. I mean, the way the numbers break down, it seems a little hinky.
Yeah, let's talk about that poll very quickly. Now, you and I, we both do a lot of work on digging into the crosstabs and digging into the methodologies on polling. We have to, we follow politics like hawks hunting rabbits. And with this one, I think, so it was 1,000 people, and to be representative of the ethnic makeup of America, they went for 130 Black respondents. That's about right, is it?
Yes. So they polled a little over 1,000 people, 13% of which were Black, which adds up to a grand total of about 130 Black people or so. Although I did see a video with the guy from Rasmussen, Mark, same name as you, who was actually defending the poll and saying that they actually interviewed about, I think, 117. So it's around there. But
Sure.
that basically means that if you do 47% of that, you've got 61 black people saying that either they're not sure whether it's okay to be white or disagreeing with the statement, which it's hard for me to.
It's
I
not
understand.
representative of an entire group of, well,
Yeah.
I don't know how many, 13, how many people? I don't know. It's 40 million people, I guess. Now, I think it's worth pointing out that Rasmussen has done some amazing polling, but I think the issue here is that you're looking at something about an attitude rather than a decision, and an attitude is far more nuanced than I'm going to vote for this person or I'm going to go for that person. That's a very, and I hate to use the word, that's a very binary choice. And attitude surveys are non-binary, right? So they or them are a little bit more difficult to actually get proper data from. I mean, that's my take on it. What's yours?
Yeah, and the thing is, and I understand kind of how statistics work. You get like a representative sample. That's kind of how they do it in general. So I understand that. But again, it's still hard for me to believe that these people represent most black people. But the other issue too, Mark, is the question itself, right? The phrase "it's okay to be white" originated with the alt-right on 4chan, and it was more of a racist, white supremacist trolling campaign. And the thing is that now that doesn't mean that anybody who's saying it's okay to be white now is a racist or alt-right. A lot of people say it because they're pushing back against a lot of the anti-white sentiment coming from the left. But regardless of that, that is the origin of the phrase. A lot of black people know that. Now, a lot of people don't know that, but a lot of black people do know that. And so if that's what was in their heads when they were answering these questions, that could have also skewed the results. So I think that there are a lot of problems with the poll. But like you said, it's really hard to quantify this thing because, I mean, I would say in general, I mean, I've been black all of my life, except for like the past 2 or 3 years because I didn't vote for Biden. But I've known a lot of black people, and I have met black people who just don't like white people. I've met racist black people. It's true. But the vast majority aren't really even thinking about white people like that. They're fine with white people being white. I mean, everybody has the right to exist, right? So so I know that's anecdotal, but at the same time, it's hard to really answer that question or in a way that makes sense and represents the majority of the people.
You know, I was thinking about getting the comedian Steve Martin on this show because, as you may know, he was raised a poor black child, and he might have a unique perspective on this. And now, Jeff, I can't let you go without talking about your new book, Chasing Liberty. What is it about, and when does it come out?
Yeah, so it comes out on the 21st. I'm very excited about it. Of March, yes.
Okay.
And I'm sorry, it comes out on the 13th, Monday the 13th of March. Very excited about it. And basically the book does two things. It tells my story of transitioning from the world of partisan politics to focusing primarily on liberty, promoting liberty, especially at the local level, getting people to focus more on their local politics to push back against the excesses of the federal and state governments. I tell my story about how I came to that decision, but it's also really to help people understand the situation that Americans are in right now with both parties growing the government, making it more intrusive. Also for people who think that they don't have a voice, because if you're a Republican, the establishment is still holding sway. Democrats, same thing. So I want to give some practical reasons and practical tips for getting involved at your local level, because that's the politics that affects you the most.
Okay, and tell us why you think this book is important now.
So I think it's important now because I think we're at a time, Mark, where pretty much everybody is dissatisfied with their political party.
I think that's an understatement.
I think so too, yes. And I've always been liberty focused. I've always been more libertarian leaning, even though I was in the more of the conservative world. But especially after these past midterm elections, and I'm speaking to Republicans specifically, when they saw that red wave didn't materialize, and when they saw that the party basically put the exact same leaders back in charge, I think that really disillusioned a lot of people. But it's not like they're going to go vote Democrat. And for Democrats, the same thing. I mean, because liberty has a lot in line with Democrats that Republicans miss. So I think that when we focus on the concept of liberty itself, rather than Team Red and Team Blue, then we can actually make more of a difference. One of the main points that I make in the book is that this really isn't about left or right, Republican or Democrat. Battle is between liberty and authoritarianism, and I really do think that that's the situation that we're in right now, regardless of party. So I think that using local politics as a bulwark against a lot of the excesses that are happening, this has to be a grassroots movement that builds from the bottom to protect the people. But at that point, then you can start bubbling up to state and federal governments.
Jeff, I'm looking forward to reading it. Thanks ever so much for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
We dismiss history at our peril.
Liberty Nation Radio with Mark Angelides. Entertaining, informative, and just plain fun. Watch Liberty Nation's The Conservative 5. Produced by conservatives for conservatives. C5's The Left Free Zone. Hosted by Liberty Nation's Lisa K. Donner. Joined by a raucous, irreverent panel of authors. Deconstructing leftist narratives. Debating the hot topics. And remembering to laugh. Join the official conservative safe space.
You only did that to piss Jeff off.
Liberty Nation's The Conservative 5.